clock in my dreams has no hands. The first thing people tell you about dreams is that they aren't real. Just noise left over from a sleeping brain. Harmless echoes in the dark. But the second thing, the part they don't tell you, is that dreams can learn. My dream learned to tick, and now I hear it, even when I'm awake. It's not the sound of a normal clock. It's a dry, wooden click. A hollow beat with no rhythm, no steady pattern. It stutters, it races. It stops for whole minutes at a time, only to slam back in with a jolt that seizes my heart. It's the sound of a clock that has no hands. I see it every night in my dreams, standing in a room choked with dust and shadows. Its tall mahogany case looks like a coffin stood on its end. Its face is a perfect blank circle of pale enamel. No numbers, no hands. And yet it ticks. And that ticking has followed me right out of the dream. I can hear it right now. A faint click, click, clack, click under the hum of my fridge, under the drone of traffic. It's a phantom pulse for a world that's already lost its mind. Section 1. My name is Arthur Crane, and I'm a historian. Or, I was. My world was built on order, on timelines and chronologies. I pieced together the past from the things it left behind, and I found comfort in the steady march of one event after another. My real passion was the forgotten object, a tarnished locket, a single worn-out shoe, an unsent letter. I've always believed every object has a story to tell. I just never thought an object would try to write mine. It started 3 weeks ago at the archival auction for the Blackwood estate. It's a crumbling old manor on the coast that had finally given up its ghosts and its junk. I was there for a set of maritime charts, but something else pulled me away. Tucked in the back of the hall, hidden under a dusty sheet, was a shape that made my stomach lurch with a sick sense of recognition. It was the clock from my dream. The auctioneer barely gave it a look. Lot 314, one non-functional grandfather clock, late 18th century, looks like severe water damage at the base. Face has been replaced, will start at $50. Nobody moved. Who would want a broken, towering piece of furniture? But my hand went up. It felt like it moved on its own, pulled by some cold, magnetic force from across the room. It was an insane, unprofessional impulse, but I couldn't fight it. Sold, the auctioneer grunted, already on to the next item. Getting it back to my little apartment was a nightmare. It was heavier than it looked and smelled of salt, rot, and something else. Something like dried leaves and old secrets. I put it in the corner of my study, where it loomed over my desk, its blank face a silent, judging eye. That night, I had the dream again, only it was clearer, closer. I was standing right in front of the handless face, and the ticking was so loud. When I woke up, the sound didn't stop. It was here, with me. A faint, sporadic clicking that seemed to be coming from inside my own skull. I checked my watch. 6:15 a.m. I looked at my phone. 6:15 a.m. Everything was normal, but the sound was there. A tiny, insidious seed of chaos planted in my perfect world of order. Click, click, clack, click. Section 2. The historian in me just couldn't let it go. An object with no function, a clock with no hands. It was a paradox. It was a story that demanded to be told. I abandoned my dissertation and threw all my energy into the clock. There was no maker's mark, but inside the case, I found a small, tarnished brass plate. It had 2 words on it. St. Jude's Folly. St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes. A chilling piece of poetry, wasn't it? That's where the trail began. I spent my days lost in digital archives, and my nights staring into the glow of my laptop, the phantom ticking my only companion. It was changing too, growing bolder. Sometimes it would fall into a frantic, steady rhythm, like a heart about to burst. Other times it would slow to a single agonizing click per minute, leaving me holding my breath in the crushing silence between. The research turned up. Strange things. St. Jude's Folly was commissioned in 1792 by a man named Aleister Blackwood, the original owner of the estate. Aleister was a recluse, a philosopher obsessed with time and eternity. He believed that our perception of past, present, and future was a prison. He wrote that time didn't flow, it just was, and we were the ones moving through it, blinded by what he called the tyranny of hands. This clock was meant to be his key, a timepiece that didn't measure time, but existed outside of it. I found shipping manifests, journal entries from his terrified servants, and finally, a physician's record. Aleister Blackwood had descended into a profound madness. He claimed he could hear the clock ticking, even though it had no mechanism to make a sound. He complained of losing hours, then entire days. He was found one morning in his study, sitting in his chair, staring at the handless clock with a serene smile on his face. He'd starved to death. As I read that, the ticking in my head became a roar. The world outside my window seemed to stutter. A bird flying past hung in the air for a second too long. The steam from my coffee froze in a perfect spiral. I blinked, and it was all normal again. Was I awake? Was this another dream? The line was getting blurry. My friends would call, and I'd just let it ring. My advisor sent worried emails that I deleted without reading. How could I explain? They couldn't hear it. They couldn't hear the ticking. If you feel like you're getting lost in this story with me, and you want to explore more mysteries that blur the lines of our world, go ahead and subscribe. There are always more stories waiting in the shadows. Section 3. Things got bad after that, fast. I stopped leaving the apartment. What was the point? Time was becoming meaningless. The sun rose and set in what felt like minutes. The reflection staring back at me from my dark computer screen was a gaunt, hollow-eyed stranger. The blank face of the clock started appearing everywhere. In the foam on my coffee, in the moon outside my window, in the faces of old photographs. It was a void, and it was swallowing everything. The ticking wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a physical thing, a vibration in my teeth, a pulse behind my eyes. The breaking point came when I found the last piece of the puzzle, a hidden compartment in the clock's base, warped shut from the water damage. My hands were shaking as I pried it open with a letter opener. Inside was a small, leather-bound journal, Aleister's final entries. His handwriting was a chaotic scrawl. He wasn't trying to stop time or escape it. He was trying to enter it. The one true, eternal, undivided moment of now. The last entry read, "The others were fools. They thought the ticking was a warning, a flaw. But it is an invitation. It is the sound of the door between the illusion of sequence and the reality of the forever." To see the world without the tyranny of hands, one must only listen. The ticking is not a measure, but a gateway. You must not fight it. You must let it in. It will unstick you. The moment I read the word unstick, the ticking in my head felt like a physical blow. The walls of my study seemed to breathe, to warp and melt like wax. The books on my shelves flowed into each other, their titles and colors bleeding into a meaningless sludge. The floor tilted. I felt this horrifying vertigo, like I was falling, but not down, sideways. I was unstuck. The clock's face loomed before me, no longer in the corner, but filling my entire vision. A white, silent, endless eternity. I was screaming. Conclusion. I came back to myself with a gasp, the scream dying in my throat. I was on my knees in my study. There was a hammer in my hand. I don't remember picking it up. The room was solid again, stable. But the ticking was a deafening roar. It was now or never. I wouldn't be another Alistair Blackwood. I would not end up as a story for some other historian to find 100 years from now. "I won't let you take me," I sobbed, scrambling to my feet. I raised the hammer, my muscles screaming. I stared into that blank, porcelain face, the source of my ruin, and I swung with every bit of strength I had left. The hammer stopped, just inches from the clock. My arm was frozen, and the deafening roar of the ticking just ceased. An absolute, profound silence fell over the room. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever heard. "Arthur." The voice was calm, gentle. It came from behind me. Slowly, my body stiff, I turned my head. My study was gone. The shelves, the desk, the books, all of it was replaced by smooth, white, padded walls. A man in a doctor's coat stood in the doorway, his face a mask of weary patience. Two large men in orderly uniforms stood behind him. My clock. It wasn't there. In its place, on the padded wall, was a crude circle drawn in black crayon. A clock with no hands. The hammer in my hand was a rolled-up magazine. My research was a stack of my own patient files, the pages filled with my frantic scribbles. "It's happening again, Arthur," the doctor said softly. "You're getting lost in the story. Can you hear me? We've talked about this." He took a gentle step into the room. "You've been with us for 5 years now, ever since the accident." He gestured to my wrist. I looked down. A pale, jagged scar circled my arm, right where my watch should be. "You were a historian," he continued, his voice so full of a sadness I couldn't understand. "A brilliant one. There was a car crash. Your fiancée, Eleanor. She was driving. She didn't make it. You were thrown from the car. The first responders said you were obsessed with your watch, that it had been smashed. You just kept asking what time it was. You kept saying you were stuck, that you just wanted to go back 5 minutes." The words didn't mean anything to me. Accident, Eleanor, they were just sounds. I looked from the doctor's sad eyes to the crayon drawing on the wall. My clock, my beautiful, terrible clock. And then I heard it. So faint, so slow. A single, gentle click. It wasn't a roar anymore. It was a whisper, a promise. The sound of a place with no accidents, no past, and no grief. A place where nothing ever ends, because nothing ever has to begin. I let the rolled-up magazine fall from my hand. I looked at the doctor, at the concern carved into his face. But he was already starting to fade, his image blurring at the edges like a watercolor painting in the rain. The real world is so loud, so complicated. It's so full of time. My world is quiet. It only has one sound, and the ticking is the only thing that's real. Here, in the timeless forever, I'm finally safe. Click, click, click. If this story captivated you, like the video. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next journey into the unknown. And let us know in the comments, what do you think is real?